We'll be getting started in a moment. I'm going to give a brief overview of the session, and then I'm going to introduce you to give 3 to 5 minutes of introduction of your career path. Is that okay, Adam?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. All right, I want to welcome everyone and thank you for coming today. We have a great set of alumni panelists here to share their experience and answer your questions on the topic of HR, management, and operations. We'll get started by asking each of our alumni to give a brief overview of their career path, current role, and then we'll open it up for questions. I encourage all students in this call who are here now and will be joining us throughout this to ask questions. This is your time to connect. Every question is a great question, and if you're thinking that question, most likely someone else on this call is also thinking that. So without further ado, I introduce you to Adam Bass. He is here and he'll give 3 to 5 minutes of his career journey. Adam.
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity to be here. It's really a pleasure and a privilege. So after I graduated in '94, I went off to law school, and that was my plan. My plan was to become an attorney. And I got about a year or two into law school and realized that is not what I wanted to do at all. But I was way into it, so I decided to finish law school, came out of school, took the bar exam, and still have never practiced law to this day. So that's a bad career path. Don't do that. What ended up happening is I ended up meeting a financial advisor. My wife and I were doing fairly well. We didn't have kids. We had 2 incomes, and we didn't know what to do as far as saving and things like that. So we met with an advisor. My career continued. Then my career slowed down, and my advisor said to me, hey, why don't you join my practice? Why don't you come in, I like the idea, you have this law degree, we'll do this, we'll do that. And then it turned out, and my thing was, I don't want to be in sales. I don't want to sell anything. That's not who I am. And then I worked with him for a little while, and it turned out that's exactly what I wanted to do, which was to meet with clients and have my own clients. So I did that for a couple of years. And then I found my passion was really for not just working with my clients, but working with our advisors to help them with their clients. So that was how I got into the management side of things. And then subsequently, what I realized is I have I guess it's maybe a unique skill set for operations. And I think very analytically, I think very logically. That does not always serve me well, but that's how I am as a person. And so I got into the operations side of things. I took over running a region for a company I was in Chicago. At the time I had a partner who was based out of New York. He subsequently moved down to Atlanta to take over as CEO of a financial services company. And I'm now his chief operating officer. We just moved down to Atlanta back in July. So it was a very roundabout way to get where I am. And I think the most important thing you can learn from that story is, me, God, it's a lot of years ago, but me at 22, so that's 25 years ago, never, if you would have given me a list of 30 jobs I would have, this would not have been one of them. This would not have been what I saw myself doing. But this is where it took me, and now I love the fact that I get to make a difference in people's lives on a daily basis, and that I can be in a position where I can use my skill set to better the lives of our advisors and our leadership team and our staff that are around me, and I get to do it with a great group of people. So I don't know I think that's about 3 to 5 minutes on me and why I'm here. Our firm is Capstone Financial, based out of Atlanta, Georgia. For those of you who know the area more specifically, we are in the heart of Buckhead.
Thank you, Adam. And I
Sure.
appreciate, lessons learned through finding out different interests through your career journey and finding out law wasn't for you, but what was. So we'll talk more about that as the questions go. I want to pass the mic then to Brock Henson. Please, why don't you share your story and where have you been since UW-Madison?
Yeah, absolutely. I'll take it back. Again, I'm Brock Henson. I'm the chief operating officer at a venture-backed startup based in Madison called EnsoData. Going back to kind of where the journey started at UW. I was a chemistry major and a poli-sci major, double major. I worked at a chem lab, loved it, fortunate to be published and do the research, had a passion for that, but found at the end of my 4 years, I was itching to sort of get into a career and start, kind of making things happen, which is a slower process on the research side of things. So, felt like I was behind the ball, jumping into a career fair, going, trying to find a path of where do I want to dive in. Ultimately ended up at Epic, electronic health records company in Verona, coming out of college. Was a wonderful opportunity. I spent 5 years there. At the end of my time there, I was directing the enterprise implementation. I was overseeing $50 million projects at multi-billion-dollar health systems, from staffing to budgeting to making it happen, and keeping everyone happy along the way. I was like 25, and the CIO of these very large health systems was my counterpart on the project. So a wonderful experience to kind of learn on the fly. From there, I sort of, through a connection I made as an undergrad at UW, found my way to a very early stage AI software company, who was sort of in the product development phase, going through some regulatory FDA approval work. And I was the fourth person to join the company, and the first three were engineers. So I had a limited operating experience in the grand scheme of things, but much more than sort of my engineering counterparts. So that's a really quick way to learn and dive in on everything operations, HR, management side of things, is start building a company as the point of that operation. So been a part of raising more than $10 million in venture capital since that time. We've grown the team. We're approaching 30 folks on the team now, and still growing. And I ultimately am responsible for all sales, our sales department, marketing department, customer success department, all roll up kind of to me. And then I also kind of keep the lights on, and I'm everything operational kind of lands on my plate as well. So seeing a startup is a great way to see a little bit of everything and learn a lot on the fly. Coincidentally, I'm also about to wrap up the executive MBA program at the Wisconsin School of Business. So I came back to be a student again in all my free time. But it's happy to talk a little bit more about that's a path and a journey in and of itself.
Thank you, Adam. I was wondering where you were going to go with the poli-sci and chem major and how you ended up in HR and operations. But it was we would like to hear more about your MBA journey too, and balancing that post grad and during work too. So more on that in the future. And then I want to introduce now Stephanie Wezelman. Please share us where your journey took you.
Hi everyone, my name is Stephanie Wezelman. I am currently the University Recruiting Manager at Echo Global Logistics in Chicago. As far as my background goes, basically I'm mirroring Adam and Brock, and the fact that what I went to school for was not at all what I'm doing now. And we joke, and in life I would say, like, if you end up in the recruiting or HR field, you probably don't plan on that being your field unless you are just one of the lucky few that knows where you want to go. But I was a journalism major at Wisconsin. I was a double major. I did strategic communications and reporting, and had a plan to go into the advertising agency world. So that's exactly where I landed right after school. I spent quite a few years working at FCB Global, which is a large ad agency in Chicago. I was on their social media strategy and content creation team. So very different from what I'm doing now. Loved it. honestly, it was such an amazing experience. Really learned about company culture and what it means to love your team and work together and work hard for common goals. And we got to work on some very cool projects. At the end of the day, though, I wanted to be more people facing. We had a intern that joined our team, and I was kind of tasked with, his day to day, and I watched how that program rolled out. And it really was the first time that I was like, you know what? I love working with people. I thought I wanted it in an advertising realm, but I think I want to be in the recruiting and HR space. So from there, kind of had a untraditional career path. I have had a few jobs since college, just trying to really figure out what I wanted to do. And I'm so happy now to say, 3 years later, from being at Echo and then a couple jobs before that, and then FCB, I found kind of my passion where I want to be. But my career path took me after that. I took just kind of figure out what was going on. I took a 3-month contract role at another ad agency in their HR and recruiting department. Realized that I loved that, but thought I wanted to be more on the university recruiting side. So I ended up going to a nonprofit after that, separately from my love of being in, recruiting and HR. I grew up going to summer camp forever, and it's like my biggest passion that I've always had. So part of me, I joked I wanted to own a summer camp someday. Don't know if I still feel that way, but I ended up taking a job as one of the assistant directors for a Wisconsin-based summer camp year-round, doing all of their recruiting. So that was kind of my first step into whole operations and real-time recruiting, hiring 250 staff and traveling around the country to recruit new camper families. So that was kind of where my career path went. And then I decided I wanted to get back to Chicago. So ended up getting a job at Echo in their university recruiting space. I have been there now, like I said, for 3 years. I have moved from campus recruiter into a lead role into now a management role, and it's been amazing. So it's been great watching that program roll out, and it's been, a great journey, but it's gotten to me where I wanted it to be.
Thank you, Stephanie. And never give up that hope of owning a summer camp. That seems thrilling and fun and relaxing and stressful at the same time. All right, well, this is where we open up for questions. I'm going to start with our first question. While our students on the call, I want to welcome you into the space. You can feel free to unmute at any time, put your video on. It's up to you in your audience. We would love to hear from you and have great learning conversations. My first question for any of the panelists is, what are some things you wish you had known at graduation that would have been valuable in your career? So at the time of or leading up to graduation, I know, Brock, maybe you mentioned that you were like late in the game of career fair and getting on board with that. So just looking for some words of advice that you wish, when you look back at your first undergrad career, what you wish you have known that would have been valuable part of your career journey.
Yeah, I think, it was interesting. It was a little bit before graduation, but I feel like I talked to somebody who was a year ahead of me, and they were like, it was like September, October. They're like, yeah, I already secured my spring job for graduation. And I was like, holy smokes, like this starts earlier than I thought. Or you can start exploring these and talking to recruiters, and I'm sure Stephanie has a lot to share on, or more insight on the recruitment cycle at university. But so I started early, and I just showed up and at the big career fair and talked to a bunch of different companies. I didn't know what I wanted to do, and I think a lot of the decisions that I was making then, and I think the other panelists will share this, getting off on a good start and just doing something teaches you a lot and sets a good foundation. It's not necessarily the only path that you will follow. I talked to a startup at the career fair. Flew out to San Francisco a couple times, was in my late decision-making process of should I start at this startup out in San Francisco or start with this company back in Madison area. And I was like, I don't know if a startup is the way that I want to go out of the gates. Like I might get caught by this bug and turn into this like crazy cycle of ups and downs, and chose what seemed like a safer path. And lo and behold, 5 years later, a cycle came back, and I had an opportunity to join a very early stage startup again, but in a real, like a true founding role. So, getting out there doing something doesn't necessarily set your path in stone for forever, it just builds that foundation of what the next thing you can kind of attack after that is.
If I could just add to that a little bit, because I could not agree any more with what you're saying. If anybody's thinking about pursuing a graduate degree of some sort, take a year off. Take a year and work. Because one of two things is going to happen. Either you're going to realize you love being in the business world or whatever business you're in, or you're going to appreciate going back to school. That's one of my bigger regrets from a professional standpoint is I wish I had taken a year between undergrad and law school, because I don't believe that I probably gave law school the attention that it deserved, because it just felt like another year of school. But if I had been in the professional world, I think I would have appreciated it a lot more. The other thing I would say is, and not to be the old man here, but just explore opportunity. I mean, just like Brock was saying, when you have the chance, I looked up one day and I was 30 and married and had a kid, and it was like my dream of perhaps working in professional sports or doing something like that. I had more responsibility at that point in time. So if you have the opportunity when you're out of school, and even if you know that you really want to be X, take the chance to go to, if something's appealing to you, take the opportunity, give it a shot. Last thing I'll tell you, don't worry about your grades. I didn't say that out loud, but your grade, no, I've never been asked in an interview what my GPA was. Worry about your life experiences. Worry about who you are as a person. Worry about what you bring to the table and how are you going to benefit that organization? How are they going to benefit you mutually, right? I look back at all the things that I concerned myself over, and I wish I could have, concerned myself over other things. I know that's probably not the most politically correct thing to say, don't worry about your grades in this environment, but it's pretty much the truth.
And just to add to what Adam was saying as well, if you have the resources or time, don't jump into a job the second you graduate. I was going to say one of my biggest regrets is probably not taking a few months off to travel and just kind of get my stuff together. I rushed to find a house. I rushed to find a place. Didn't know Chicago at all. I'm from Arizona, so figured it out. But I am so envious of students that I see who take time off or start a month later, depending on where you're going, if there's certain start classes or different opportunities to kind of push it out a little bit. It's awesome to have a full-time job offer, but if your company is flexible, take the time.